Trypanophobia. You've probably never heard of it. However, it is one of the most common phobias in existence, affecting an estimated 10% of man. This phobia is not a laughing matter, however, because people die from it every single year.
So what is trypanophobia? Trypanophobia is the irrational fear of needles. Many people think they have an irrational fear of needles. However, only those with extreme responses such as panic, sweating, and even fainting are the ones with this glorious phobia. So exactly how did this phobia come to fruition? Well, trypanophobia has its roots in early man. It has been theorized that the phobia developed as a defense mechanism when attacked. For instance, in battle, if someone with an earlier form of trypanophobia were stabbed, they would likely faint, allowing them to play dead, in a sense protecting them.
Another important evolutionary factor behind this unlivable, horrible phobia is that the phobia allowed early man to lose less blood in their injuries. When a person with trypanophobia sees a sharp object or is stabbed with a sharp object, their blood pressure significantly drops. This allows them to lose less blood and hence have a greater chance of survival, and hence a greater chance to spread their genes down.
While this reflex was somewhat useful earlier in history, it has become more of a problem than a helpful trait. Nowadays, this gene has caused many people to have hypersensitivity with pain. This not only affects those with trypanophobia, but thousands across the United States. This larger reaction, caused by a small amount of pain, has caused the average American pain tolerance to decrease significantly.
Oh hi! Trypanophobia can be easily triggered like most phobias. One of the most common triggers can be pictures of needles. If presented with an image of a needle, those with the phobia will often cower in fear and try to avoid looking. Another common trigger are medical offices, which can remind a patient of a time when they received an injection. One of the most dangerous situations is holding down someone with trypanophobia. This reminds them of a traumatic experience they may have experienced and may result in a flight or fight response.
The physical symptoms of trypanophobia include shaking, decreased blood pressure, panic, and increased stress. If you experience these symptoms when you are presented with a needle or injection, you likely have a form of this phobia and should seek help.
Hey Jake, speaking of forms of this phobia,
Trypanophobia has 4 common variants: vasovagal, associative, resistive, and hyperalgesic.
the most common of these being vasovagal trypanophobia, which is estimated to affect 80% of those with trypanophobia. Vasovagal causes those with the phobia to experience a rapid decrease in blood pressure and often leads to fainting when confronted with a needle. Vasovagal is also the most dangerous form of trypanophobia because it can result in death in extreme cases. People with this type of phobia often fear the reaction to seeing a needle more than the actual needle itself.
The second most common type of trypanophobia is associative trypanophobia. This type stems from traumatic events such as receiving a painful injection in the past or witnessing a painful procedure firsthand. Associative can cause patients to experience insomnia, panic, and fear due to extreme anxiety. The most common form of treatment is cognitive therapy, but we will cover that treatment a bit later.
The last 2 types of trypanophobia are resistive and hyperalgesic. Resistive trypanophobia stems from a fear of being held down while getting an injection. In many cases, the patient will become violent if confronted with a needle. Hyperalgesic trypanophobia, on the other hand, is the fear of pain from getting held down during an injection. To people with this form of trypanophobia, the pain of the injection is so great that a shot is simply unbearable.
Oh, hi there. Let's talk treatment.
Of course.
One of the most common forms of treatment is hypnotherapy. Hypnotherapy can be effective in reprogramming parts of the phobia.
Hypnosis? What about those who don't believe in hypnosis?
Thankfully, that's why psychocounseling exists.
Psychocounseling? What is that?
Psychocounseling involves the explanation of the processes behind the treatment of the phobia and the phobia itself.
What? Interesting. Very interesting.
I heard you knew another form of treatment.
Oh yes, of course. One last common type of treatment for trypanophobia is cognitive behavioral therapy. This therapy involves a 3-step process. The first process and step is establishing how severe the phobia is, followed by the second step of explaining the actual injections and how they're done. The last step is often the most painful step, and it involves actually curing the phobia. In this step, the patient is slowly exposed to more and more injections until they lose their own phobia.
Let's recap what we've learned.
Yes, let's do that right now. This phobia affects 10% of the world population and has 4 common variants.
There are various causes of this phobia, such as going through a traumatic experience.
And while there may be many ways to try to cure this phobia, it's not something that should be taken lightly. Millions of kids around the world are constantly being poked in the arm and humiliated for having this phobia.
If you ever meet someone with this phobia, please be patient and understanding of what they go through every day.